Good morning, Dr. Schuler, Dr. Nayak, friends of IPRI network and the IPRI network. A warm welcome to you for the IPRI Peace Lecture today, organized by National Institute of Advanced Studies and the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in collaboration with our partners, the Christ University, St. Joseph's College, Bangalore University, and also Jain University from here onwards. The day's program will be today. I'll make a small note about what this network, what this IPRI is all about, and then I'll hand over the floor to Pankaj. Pankaj will briefly mention about CAS, NIAS collaborations, and then we'll request Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director, National Institute of Advanced Studies, to say a few words and introduce our speaker to the audience. And then we'll have Dr. Schuler addressing us, followed by discussions. And then at the end, I'll request my network partners to make a set of comments on both the session today and also what we are planning to do. And then we'll conclude with a vote of thanks and break for lunch. That's the plan for the morning. A 2-minute note on International Peace Research Initiative. It's a part of our Strategic and Security Studies program within the National Institute of Advanced Studies. It's not even 1 year old. We launched this initiative last June. It has three primary components. One is the research component. We are trying to bring an annual on what's happening at the global level on conflicts and peace. CAS has been supporting earlier an annual on armed conflicts and peace process only focusing on South Asia. From last year under the IPRI banner, we are looking at the entire world. So that's a research component. We are planning to bring it out as an annual published by Routledge. So that's a research component to the IPRI project. The second one is a series of lectures with big names. Today is the fourth one in the series. Coincidentally, we started with the German scholar, Dr. Christian Wagner started this peace lecture series last June in Chennai. We had Professor Sahadevan from Jawaharlal Nehru University, followed by our own scholar from NIAS, Professor Narendra Pani. He heads multiple programs within NIAS. And then the fourth one we had by Dr. Rajmohan Gandhi, the great grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And fifth, Dr. Schuler, is your lecture. A warm welcome not only to the NIAS, but also to our lecture series. So that's the second part of the IPRI, the lecture series. The third part of IPRI is what we call as the capacity building amongst the young scholars. There is a strong conviction that we need a bunch of scholars, a core working on peace and conflict. We are grateful to our partners. Most of the capacity building workshops, we are planning to host it in these institutions. Our idea is at the end of next 2 years, we'll have a good core of scholars focusing on peace and conflict from a South Asian perspective. So that's the third part of the IPRI. And the last part is the network itself. Besides NIAS, we have Christ University, Dr. Manoharan is here. Bangalore University, Professor M.J. Vinod is here. St. Joseph's College, Professor Somaya is here. And then from today, we'll have Jain University as a part of the network. So welcome to Jain University. Outside this, we also have a bunch of institutions, both think tanks and educational institutions. Pondicherry University, St. Joseph's College, Chennai, TIS in Mumbai, Center for South Asia Studies in Kathmandu, RCSS in Colombo. So it's a big network. And we are hoping that we'll gather mass and also have some from Germany, Europe, and on the East also from Singapore to Australia. So that's a network. We are not even 1 year old. Maybe 3 years down the lane, we should come together and then see how far we have come and then take what can we do for the next year. But all these 4 activities of IPRI could not have taken place had it not been for CAS. The seed support, if I say, has come from CAS. In particular, I should be thankful to you, Pankaj, for all your support. With that note, may I hand over the floor to you?
And at the outset, let me say what a pleasure and privilege it is to be here amongst this august gathering. And it's really, as far as from CAS, I would like to welcome everybody here, present here, especially Dr. Schuler, who has also been endeavoring to come to India since the past 3 years, but he succeeded finally now. You know, and he will be introduced, of course, by Sir here. But just the salient feature is that he's been the master of Angela Merkel's campaign for the last 4 terms, and she won, so. And also a close confidant and a very important member of coalition building team negotiations. So, but let me say a few words about CAS. The India office has been operational for last year for 50 years. And I have had the privilege of working with it for nearly 3 decades. It's a German political foundation aligned with the CDU. And I think 2 or 3 partners already know about it, but it's for the benefit of the rest. And it functions under the foreign policy framework totally funded by the German government. And in India specifically, we work with a cross-section of partners ranging from security policy issues to economic issues to political dialogue. We have a very vibrant political dialogue program. And the CAS India office is headed by Mr. Peter Remele, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but today morning he called up and conveyed his regards and all the best. At the moment, he's sitting on a plane from Seoul to New Delhi, where he was there for attending an annual conference of the internal CAS conference, yes. So coming to the topic as well, we are looking at liberal democracies, challenges ahead. You know, democracies anyway are supposed to be liberal. So when we say liberal democracies, that means there is something wrong going somewhere. But here I stop. Dr. Schuler is here, Sir is here. I wish this conference all the best and thank all the partners, specifically Suva. It's always a pleasure to support your activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you.
Dr. Schuler, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a very proud privilege to welcome Dr. Schuler, who has been very important in Germany, Federal Director of the CDU, and I think the most important is the Chairman of the IDU Standing Committee on Elections and Campaigns. I think this is the right time for you to come to India, so that you can also see how the elections are done in India and how the campaigns are done and how it is different from Germany. I think the topic is very important, and I think the challenges which we have today is mainly global challenges, and I think all democracies has to play a meaningful role. We know that the climate change and related environmental issues are not bound by any national boundaries, but it's a global. And it's not that who is a polluter and who suffers. You know, there are no such definite lines. So we need to understand these issues and have a response mechanism to that. At the same time, we have another also issues which are related to migration of people. Could be because of the political reason, could be economical reason, even environmental reason. I mean, there is already a lot of migration happening from Sundarbans region because of the sea level rise. Also, there could be economic reasons. Many parts of the world, the migration is because of the economic reasons. There are also issues of the terrorism, which is also a global issue today. So there are many such issues. I mean, I'm not going to list everything. But the important part is, I think we need a structure or a governance structure, a global structure basically, which can address these issues. And whatever structure we have, primarily we have been seeing that they are not really that effective, especially when they have to be addressed issues related to economic issues or migration issues or climate change issues. And I think the liberal democracy or democracy, I think, has to play a very meaningful role in creating such a structure. Because I think that's the probably only way we can move forward. And with this such an important topic, we are really very proud and privileged to welcoming Dr. Schuler to talk to us about what are the challenges. And as you know, Dr. Schuler studied history in Cologne before holding leading positions in CDU headquarters under Helmut Kohl and Angela Merkel. As State Secretary, he was part of the government in Schleswig-Holstein. I think it's correct.
You're not the only one who has difficulties to pronounce that. It's one of the 16 states.
Okay. I know Holstein. I think it's famous for cows.
It is. It's agricultural structure, mainly. Healthcare is very strong there. And it's on the coast. So maritime economy is strong there. Harbors and shipbuilding and all that kind of stuff.
The German media hailed the federal manager, as he popularly known as the engineer of the successful 2009 CDU election campaign. He has followed up as a head of Dr. Angela Merkel's successful campaigns in 2013 and now 2017. He is the winner of Aristotle Excellence Award, the Oscar for political campaigning. The digitization of politics is of passionate interest to him. So we welcome Dr. Schuler, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. I feel privileged and honored to be here and with the opportunity to attend that meeting and learn a little bit, dive into the Indian perspective of politics, of democracy, of campaigning. If you allow, I would do two things before getting into the topic. That is, get my jacket off and stand up. And there's a reason for it, because I'm a bit tired. I have to work myself into this meeting because I had very little sleep. I arrived at, I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning from the trip from Berlin after a very exhausting week. It was, Parliament is in session. It was the last parliamentary session before the Easter holidays. So a lot was at stake, and we are in a national election campaign as well. It is the election campaign for the European Parliament. This election will be held on the 26th of May. So I was busy all week preparing all the TV ads, posters and billboards, the core messages, the rallies and big events that we will see once Easter is over and the hot phase of the campaign starts, which is generally limited to 6 weeks prior to election day. That is when you, by law, you are allowed to have your posters, billboards in the streets, when you are allowed to have TV ads, paid media, etc., etc. So we are heading for the hot phase of the campaign. But one of the secrets of a successful election campaign is start early, finish late. So if you want to win an election campaign, the first thing you have to do is very start early with a very proper and thorough preparation. So I always compare election campaigns with an iceberg. People only see 10% of it above water. 90% what's happening is below sea level. So very similar to election campaigns. So first of all, you were so kind to introduce my who I am and what is my history and what's my job description. It's threefold, more or less. It's managing the biggest and most important political party in Germany, running the national headquarters in Berlin, being the chief strategist of the party, advisor to the leaders and front runners of the party, and the campaign strategist and campaign manager when it comes to general elections. That is my, in brief, my case in Germany. And in addition to that, a couple of years ago, I think it was 10 years ago now, from now, the IDU, which is the umbrella organization, the global umbrella organization of center-right and conservative parties, with some, I think, 85 member parties around the globe. They elected me the chairman of one of the three standing committees of that organization, the Committee on Campaigns and Elections. So when I have the opportunity, I travel the world and try to help sister parties around the globe to prepare and hopefully win elections, advising their front runners, presidents, etc., etc. So the international field is not a stranger to me, not at all. So having said that, my second remark is, if you understand where I'm coming from, you understand what my view on the topic is. I'm not speaking from the perception of a foreign policy expert. I'm not speaking from the perspective of a representative of the federal government of Germany. My perspective is that of a strategist and of a campaign manager. And what is the job of a campaign manager is to win an election. In order to win an election, you have to know who and where are your voters. And not only who are your voters and where can you find them, but also how can you reach out to them. In order to come up with a proper plan that enables you to fulfill your task, you have to know what drives voters. What moves them, what shakes them, how do they feel, what is their view on the world, on their special surroundings, their state policies, their local policies, their national and the international policies. So knowing the voter is of utmost importance. So that is the perspective. In brief, there is no single issue and no single motive when voters are asked to cast their vote. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of rational elements. What is best for me? What is in it for me? Who does what for me or has done or promises? Do I believe somebody? So trust is a key driver, but also emotion. How do I feel? Do I feel well? Am I satisfied? Am I dissatisfied? Am I angry? Am I happy? What is my future? My view towards the future? So a mixture of rational and emotional aspects. Some of these mixtures can be made of very small elements, but some of them are being made of very big waves, trends, big trends. And what we are doing now today, because I think we should get into a discussion on what is similar here in India and what maybe is different. Therefore, I brought a couple of slides with me, trying to give you an idea of what I see is the mood, the political mood, and the general trends that influence voters in Germany, in Europe, but to me, also on a global level. that's why I brought that with me, Germany, in the bigger picture, the concept of liberal democracy under attack. So I'm not talking about, you know, the details of German politics, but big trends that I see that influence democracies all over the world. Well, we're living in turbulent times, and things are changing very rapidly, and they are changing very, very, I would say we haven't seen that much change for quite a while. So big changes and revolutionary leaps in development due to globalization, due to geographic shifts, and to digitalization go hand in hand with the resulting tensions within societies. There is pressure. People feel under pressure everywhere. And I think these three aspects, globalization, the shifts of geostrategic elements, and digitalization, are one of these, are three of the main reasons why people have the feeling that the ground that they are standing on is shaking, that there is no safe ground anymore. That is not new. If you look back in history, you can identify moments in history when very similar things happened. But it was always in times when big changes and revolutionary changes were about to come. What is the consequence of that? Tendencies towards renationalization and protectionism. And they lead to a change of the political discourse. And this results in the rise of populist forces from right and left. The concept of liberal democracy is under pressure, not only from the outside. Authoritarian regimes around the world, I won't name some, but I think that all of you have some in mind. Some are not so far away from here. They are not the only threat to the concept of democracy, but the crisis is that democracy is being challenged at the same time from the inside and from the outside. And that is a sort of new quality, at least for Germany and for Europe. And I will elaborate a little bit on that later. So from a German and European perspective, what's really relevant for us is if you are familiar a little bit with the history of Germany and Europe, you know that after the Second World War, we were very much depending on a very close relationship with the United States, politically, economically, but also military. And we call that the transatlantic relations. Transatlantic relations have always been a pillar of Germany after the Second World War. And the transatlantic relations, to tell you the truth, are on an all-time low. NATO, the military alliance with the United States, European countries mostly, and the United States, is under threat. Not from outside, but from within. The biggest, the fattest cat at the table, the President of the United States calls it an obsolete organization, right? And questions arise. Is there still such a thing as the West? We used to call it the West. Is there such a thing as the West? And will there be such a thing as the West come 2050, which is just around the corner? European Union looks in a mixture of disintegration, political paralysis, and economic weakness. We call that Brexit, right? The Brexit chaos. I mean, you can have a look from afar. We have to, this is our daily business, trying to find out what goes on in the heads of these people sitting in the House of Commons, and I don't have a clue, to be honest. The mother of all messes, was the thing has been called. Germany, which is the the political and economic driver of the European Union, Germany seems tired. Germany seems tired and exhausted. Why is that so? 2015, the migration crisis came to a climax and determined the political discourse. And it caused a change of the political climate. It caused a new political party to enter into the national government. It changed the agenda. We had long election campaigns. We had long coalition negotiations. So it took half a year after election day until Angela Merkel was sworn in fourth term. Because in Germany, due to the legal restrictions, you're not able to win an absolute majority. We have proportional voting system, so coalition building is essential. And the chancellor is not elected by the people directly, but by the majority of the members of parliament. So what you have to do is prevent others from forming a majority against you or without you, and organize your own majority. This takes time, is exhausting, you have to compromise, you have to sit in endless meetings, and sometimes, as it happened to us, your partners close the books, get out of the room and say, no, we're not gonna enter this. And this is why it took so long, and it ended up in an unwanted coalition. Two coalition partners are forming a coalition that none of them wanted when it was election time. So political mood is grumpy, right? I'm not saying that we are not producing and making progress, but the mood is a grumpy one. The crisis of liberal democracy, the uncertain future of the West, the geostrategic shifts, the shifts. There's an author that has named it Easternization. I think that's quite it. The shift from the West, from Europe and the United States to the East, to Asia. And India is a part of it, right? Everybody is focused on China, but don't forget India, right? And what we see is, and you mentioned it in your introductory words, the decreasing effectiveness of the 20th century world order. We are still living in international organizations and in a way to organize our politics that was established more or less after the Second World War. But we all see and feel that this time comes to an end. The world order of the 21st century will not be the world order of the 20th century, but we don't know yet what it will look like. And that in turbulent times. So you don't have an effective international order that is able to deal and handle crises in times when people feel there are more crises than ever. And the result is people are afraid, people are nervous, people are angry, people feel lost, right? There is nobody taking them by the hand and saying, hey, we can handle that. And that is the way we're going to do it, right? So ineffectiveness of the international order, the political and cultural divide in Western societies. This has been called the divide between the somewheres and the anywheres. What do you mean by it? Well, make it to be quite plain, there are people in our societies who can cope up with the challenges of globalization and digitalization. The anywheres, they can live anywhere on the globe because they feel fit and competent to deal with these challenges and opportunities. But others are not. So instead of making societies more homogeneous, we see all around the globe that societies are being driven apart. Growing controversies and polarization due to the changes in societies. We have changes in our set of values, in our attitudes. Our societies are less homogeneous than they used to be. They're more open, they're more diverse. All that drives people apart. The confrontation between those political parties which loyally support the system and those which proclaim that, and this is a quote, the system has to go because it has become obsolete and calls for a revolution to wash it all away. This is a quote from the chairman of the populist right-wing party that has made it into German parliament for the first time in the 2017 elections. This is a clear statement. We are not debating on issues. We are not debating on migration, security, economy issues. We are debating and confronting the system as a whole. Democracy as it has developed in our country over the last 70 years. And we should take that guy serious. I mean, in the beginning, people used to laugh at him and say, well, come on, this guy is crazy. But we should take that very serious. And another quote of that guy, and I love that really because it's so clear, when the first time he set foot into German parliament, he said to journalists, pointing fingers at the established political parties, we will hunt them down, right? He's not saying we will discuss issues and we will argue with them and have debates. No, we will hunt them down, right? So, not very friendly perspective. What's the way people in general are looking at politicians? Do people trust politicians? Do they regard them as smart, brilliant, trustworthy, effective, caring? I doubt that this is the case in most of our countries. What they see and hear is blah, blah, blah. Is that relevant for me? What is he talking about? Does he have a clue about my circumstances of life? Is he addressing issues that are relevant to me and my family? No, they're talking about themselves. It's a self, it's circling around itself. Politicians are talkers, right? Diplomacy and multilateral cooperation is only good at piling up papers. In the United Nations or in the EU Council, they are sitting around tables, having proper dinners, drinking champagne, discussing, writing papers, and nothing changes. They get nothing done, right? That's the way many people look at, the political system as it is. Ineffective. A big game is on. With few kings and lots of pawns, right? And who are the kings? Money makes the world go round, right? It's not politics, not democracy. It's money, right? They are the kings. They decide what happens, right? Globalization means fat cats. Few fat cats take it all, and many pay the price. It's not a good thing. Very few people benefit from it, but a lot of people suffer, right? And this is even true in Germany. I mean, I always, joke a little bit about it because when I say, well, I mean, globalization is not really a new thing that came up just around the corner yesterday. You could see it coming for a couple of years. But until migration crisis, people in Germany thought that globalization means that people in other countries of the world buy German cars. Right? Fine. We like globalization that way. But now globalization is marching right through your living room. Right? And then people say, oh, we don't like that. So people look, all that is uncertainty, fear, anger, right? Frustration. And there are warning signs. This is a survey that has been done in Germany, and the result was 80% of the Germans think that decision-making takes too long in a democracy, right? Let's have strong men, right? Hammering the fists on the table and saying, that's the way, it's done, right? And we're not going to debate that. I don't want you to intervene. And people say, yeah, the system should be more effective. It's not effective anymore. 2/3 have the impression that nothing is going ahead and no problem is being solved. The search for compromises makes politics seem tiring and inefficient. It's too much compromising, right? And this stimulates the longing for strong, assertive leaders. And the critical thing about it is that while politics is getting ever more complex, people are getting less prepared to deal with that complexity, and they get more and more impatient. But that does not seem to be a promising way to solve problems, because it's not easy, right? People think that it should be quicker and easier, but problems are complicated, right? And easy solutions, don't trust people who promise you easy solutions. That's my advice to young people, because they will cheat you most of the time, right? So dissatisfaction with established political forces and institutions, frustration about the same old games the establishment is playing, loss of trust, are by no means limited to democracies in Europe, but can also be found around the world. So it's a global challenge. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't make it better, on the contrary, but it's a global challenge for established political parties and for established democracies around the world. Why do we see this rise of populism and nationalism in Europe? Banking crisis, economic crisis, refugee crisis, Brexit crisis. So Europe has been going through a series of crises, at least for 10 years in a row, right? People have not been, let in peace. There was no rest. One crisis and then the next. We jumped right into the next crisis, and none of them is really being solved. Trust in many EU governments is low, societies are drifting apart, separatists and nationalists sense their chance, losers of globalization become angry citizens, traditional parties lose their credibility, migrants and refugees appear as a danger. Populists of various colors, right and left, feed on these tensions that have gripped Europe, and they promise simple solutions to complex problems. Right? And the anti-migration party in Germany is the best example for that. Whatever topic is at stake, the solution is away with the migrants, and the problems will go away, which is ridiculous and nonsense. But that is the message that they are selling. That's why I'm saying migration is a symptom rather than a cause. It's also about economic and social upheavals and threats, loss of confidence that politicians still have a grip on what financial markets and other phenomena of slippery globalization cause. Many people feel helplessly about anonymous powers that are not democratically legitimized and that are not subject to democratic control. Politics is considered too weak and too dependent on global actors of the economy and financial market to effectively carry out control and protection functions. And I think I brought one, this is one question that was being raised in a survey a couple of months ago. It was, do you think that the government, is that correct, that the government cannot assert itself against the power of economy in many issues? And people said, overwhelmingly, yes, that is true. It is the economy and it's the international and global money market and financial market that makes the world go round, and it's not democratically elected government or parliament. Dangerous, right? It's a global issue. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Iron Curtain, we have been told that this would mark the end of history. There was an American politician, scientist, Francis Fukuyama, who wrote a book called The End of History. That was in '92. It was about saying, well, the battle of political systems has been decided once and forever. Democracy has won, Western liberal concept of democracy, and it's only a matter of time until this concept has been spread around all the globe. And we all jump in a golden era, into a golden era of liberal democracy under the leadership of the single remaining superpower, the United States. History has taught us a lesson one more time, right? Today we know that this was an illusion. Instead of bright sunshine, dark clouds cover the sky, and questions of a fundamental nature arise again. The cultural conflict, I see cultural conflicts between cosmopolitanism, traditionalism, political conflicts between pluralism and national populism, and a system conflict between liberal democracy in multilateral relations on the one hand, and autocratic policy models on a national basis on the other level. So this is, we are not talking here small business, we are talking big business, right? The comeback of walls is a result, right? You know that guy who has built his castle there? It's funny. I mean, it's a tragedy, but it's funny. In Germany this year, we said we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the downfall of the Berlin Wall. And at the same time, we witness a global comeback of the idea of walls. More than 70 walls and fences are either in existence or under construction around the globe. This is 5 times as many as it was when the Berlin Wall was coming down, right? So it's not, freedom is not spreading all over the world. The comeback of walls is a reaction to the Western euphoria, probably the hybris of the 90s, which has turned out an illusion. We can skip that one. It's just so the shiny scenario of Fukuyama and others initially hid almost all shadows and negative sides of globalization. Over time, it turned out that gains in freedom, when walls come down, you gain freedom. But gaining freedom goes hand in hand with losses in security, right? And fear returns when hopes are not fulfilled. And that is what we see today. Walls are the answers of illusions of answers to these feelings. They convert fear to trust, insecurity to security, disorientation to orientation, identity crisis to identity assurance, confusion to clarity. Francis Fukuyama's latest book, by the way, is on the issue of identity, right? And there's a reason for that. I'm not very much convinced of what he's saying, but he's right by identifying this issue and this topic. It is the answer. The walls, concrete walls, and walls in the minds of people convey the illusion of being able to solve the problems of identity. But it's an illusion. That's why I'm saying concrete walls and mental walls, because if we look into our societies, we see that not only in international relations, keywords nationalism versus multilateralism, but also in our liberal Western societies, walls tend to build rather than walls to disappear. Walls between different ways of life, of living, between towns and countryside, between online and offline world, between rich and poor, between young and old, between migrants and natives, walls, walls, walls all over the place. And the walls of the internet with the diverse life worlds and echo chambers are the digital expression of this development, right? And I think that was the last slide I brought with me. So what is the depressing conclusion of the scenario that I presented here? I have brought a presentation how we deal with that, but that is that was not that's not what I wanted to do today, because I'm interested in, do you share the analysis? Is that something that you see in your country or in neighboring countries of India? And then probably we can try to work on is there a way that we can deal with these phenomena? What can we do? What should we do? Thank you very much for your attention.